All right, we're good?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're good, Jamie.
Good. Welcome, everybody, to the May 25th EMS Advisory Committee meeting. And the meeting is live streamed and recorded. And let's see here. So we'll begin with the agenda. May I have a mover and seconder for the agenda? Scott.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I had technical difficulties. Apologies.
Okay, Scott and Joel. That the May 25th, 2023 Parry Sound District Emergency Medical Services Committee meeting agenda be approved. Any additions or? Nope. All in favor then? Okay, that's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? No? Okay. Mover and seconder for the minutes. John and Pearl. That the minutes of the March 30th, 2023 meeting of the Parry Sound District Emergency Medical Services Committee meeting be approved as circulated. Any comments or changes that have to be made? No? All in favor then? And that's carried. Any correspondence?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, there's no correspondence for this particular meeting.
Okay. All right. Your report, Dave.
Thank you, Jamie. So this is rather brief report with this meeting to get us on track with our scheduled meetings is a little bit shorter time span than most meetings will be. But to update everyone with the EMS bases, we are finishing off some repairs that we've had at the Parry Sound base, that's specifically overhead door repairs. Well, I want to thank both the Township of the Archipelago and Seguin for repairs that they have most recently made at their bases. We had a drainage issue at the Point of Barrel base, and the director of public works from that municipality came in and put together a plan and executed it, and it's greatly relieved a health and safety issue from slip and falls at that location. And again, in Seguin, a similar drainage issue, we had to get some drainage plates made up, and again, it was a health and safety issue that was creating some trip hazards. So that's greatly appreciated that they came in and got those areas fixed up. I don't have this in my report, but of course the big issue is the Burke's Falls base. We don't have any immediate progress there, other than that we're still waiting on whether there's going to be funding opportunities, and the 3 communities that participate in the Point of Barrel Fire Department are working together, and they are keen to have EMS as a part of their build if we can get it to go ahead in the future. So that's still moving forward. The 2023 financial position is strong. I'm very happy to report that. Specifically around worked hours, we're in a very good place. And that is, right now we're forecasting a balanced budget for that purpose. Sick time has decreased throughout the year and is running lower than in the previous years. So that's a very positive outcome, and hopefully it will lead to a slight surplus, or at worst a balanced budget at the end of the year. The other item that from the previous meeting was the unit hour utilization study. So that's going to be important for our 2024 budgeting when we get there in the fall, which will be at our next meeting. So we're just currently finalizing the contract for that, and we'll have our consultant working on that over the summertime, utilizing our 2022 numbers, which are going to be our most current and most accurate numbers to be able to utilize, because COVID really did mess up our 2020 and 2021 numbers. So that's what I have. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have about those particular issues or any other issue that they may have questions about.
John?
Just as an update to, I guess, yeah, an update to one of the items that Dave mentioned. We have a meeting of 3 councils this coming week, where the fire hall replacement of the Burks Falls Fire Hall will be on the agenda for identification of timelines, process, and it has been made clear from the first meeting that this committee had that you're hoping for some movement forward on a new base in the next 4 years. So that has been added to that as a timeline. So hopefully either I'll share it with Dave as a separate email, or by October, we'll maybe have a bit of a direction as to where that station might be as far as timelines, and start a process with EMS to figure out how to do the design work.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay. I have a mover and seconder to receive the report. Joel and Scott, that the Emergency Services Director's report dated May 25th, 2023 be accepted as submitted. All in favor? And that's carried. Anything to add to the reports, Dave?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, I would just like to comment on a few things if I can, with everyone being relatively, or most people being relatively new. I can just go through the pages. Page 1 of the report just identifies call volumes throughout the entire district. So it does, it has a comparison from 2022 to 2023, where we're at, and 2023 year to dates for each of the bases. Let's see, page 2 identifies our human resources staffing complement at any given time on these monthly reports. Page 3 is of relative importance for reporting to the Ministry of Health. And what page 3 identifies is our response times that we're legislated to report on, and that the ministry publicly posts at the end of each year. So you'll see that there are several categories on the left-hand side of the page 3 report. Of course, the highest priority responses start at the top with sudden cardiac arrest, following through to the relatively minor CTAS 5 responses. The bottom box outlines what our targets are for response times to these calls, as well as where we currently stand with them. So if we utilize the SCA, or the sudden cardiac arrest line, our target time is 6-minute response time. And that's a ministry set target time for both sudden cardiac arrest and CTAS 1 calls. The ministry sets that time. For the rest of the responses, we set the time that we're attempting to achieve. And then the target, which is something that we set here in the District of Parry Sound, is on the 3rd line over. So you can see that the target for sudden cardiac arrest to be there within 6 minutes is 30% of the time. And year to date, we're achieving that 50% of the time. So that's a fairly strong position to be in. I will caution everyone that we usually do find that at this time of year, we are in a strong position before summer hits, and we start a lot more of our remote responses to the cottages, or out onto Georgian Bay, or to water access lake properties. So 50% is strong even from a typical year, but that's identified. And then of course all the rest of the responses and times coordinate in that fashion. So this is publicly reported at the end of each year, and the ministry publishes it. I'm not suggesting that it is, watched by thousands of members of the province, but so that these are public numbers and do get posted on the ministry website. The next page, when we speak of code 8s, those are standby calls, and we do like to track them just to know how much we're moving ambulances when they're not actually going on to emergency responses. Matt, the manager, and I utilize this as a tool just to make sure that we're not unnecessarily moving vehicles around the district. So there are certain stations that get moved much more than other, especially on the west side of the district in Point of Barrow and Humphrey. Those vehicles move significant amount, but the vehicles on the east side move as well. So we track these year over year. And then the last page is just with regards, or the next page is with regards to public relations that occur, to keep members up to date on the types of public education items that the paramedics do. And then the call volume chart is something that I find useful, and I think you could too if you're reporting on it to any of your municipalities. It identifies year over year the response, the volume of the responses that we do. And you can see from looking at the chart that generally they tend up. This year for the month of January, we were higher than any other year. However, we have been slightly lower than 2022 for the next 3 months. So that we generally see an increase every year, and the second chart shows that over the past 4 years. You can see that every year the volume has increased. We'll see what that tends to at the end of the year. And then we have a chart with regards to our monthly night calls. We do track night calls outside of day calls. A lot of that has to do with the west side because we do downshift from the number of cars available on the west side at nighttime. On the east side, the 3 main stations have nighttime resources stationed in them. Argyle does not, of course, but Argyle does flow both directions. And then there are 2 stations that we still utilize a callback system in. So we track these numbers to ensure that the callbacks are not becoming overwhelming. In Humphrey, we're really only running the callback system for 2 months of the year anymore. And it's not overwhelming. And in Argyle, it runs 12 months of the year as a callback system. And we average about 1.25 calls we are averaging right now about 1.25 calls a week. So that would not be considered overwhelming. Doesn't indicate that there's need for additional hours or more resources to be extended currently. So happy to answer any questions with regards to any of those reports. I know it's a lot of information to flow, and feel free to study that. And if you have any questions about it, I'm always available for a phone call or email as well to just clarify something if there are questions.
John.
I've got a few questions, Dave. Hopefully this isn't inappropriate. A couple things I don't understand or was looking for clarification on, so maybe you could help me. Hopefully do this quickly. The page 3, the response time standards, is specific to CTAS. So I'm assuming that's transport CTAS of the patient.
So transport CTAS, John, is not a term I'm familiar with. Can you clarify exactly what you mean by transport CTAS?
Well, back in the day, and I don't really want to lean too heavily on what I used to do because I'm sure lots has changed, but before I left EMS dispatch, the was a system of initial CTAS applied to patient at contact, and then there was the transport CTAS when the crew left departed scene with the patient. They would report a CTAS that they were traveling under and then the appropriate priority. So I was just curious if the CTAS that is part of the response time standards was the initial CTAS that the crew had to report in the first few minutes of their on scene, or whether it was actually what they transported on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Thanks for the clarification, John. This is the transport CTAS that is being provided.
Okay. Okay. Could I ask a couple more?
Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. So the response time standard. So part of my catchment area are the communities of Kearney, Parry, and McMurrick Monteith. So if the Brooks Falls station is if the Brooks Falls base, the crew is out of station, a good portion of those three communities will be serviced by Muskoka EMS. Do those calls get captured in the response time standards, or is that excluded because it's serviced by a different EMS service?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, that would be excluded. So what you're looking at here is strictly Parry Sound District EMS's response times. So what would be included is if we respond out of district, which does happen in the northeast section significantly, in the North Bay area. So this is strictly Parry Sound District's response time. If another either Muskoka from our south or Manitoulin and Sudbury from our north, or Nipissing even responds in, they're not captured in these numbers.
So then extended response times wouldn't skew our target data.
For you, Mr. Chairperson, extended response times from others responding into our area would not skew the time. However, us responding into other areas would skew the time, because if we were to respond from Parry Sound or Humphrey into Georgian Bay Township, then that would be captured in this data, and that could be an extended response time. So you're bringing up a point, John, which is a very valid point, in that the data isn't perfect from that standpoint. So it doesn't adequately capture some of those border areas, maybe the way we would like. However, I would suggest that we are looking at, well, not right yet, but in a year's worth of data, 4,000, 5,000, or 6,000 calls. So those anomalies do start to work their way out of the system.
Right. Okay. And could I ask a question about this would be page 1, I think. Let me go back to this. Yeah, page 1. Are the call stats and the response times attributed to the station that the vehicle is assigned to, or to a more geographic location? So I see there's on page, actually on page 1, there's quite a number of standbys for the Humphrey station. So if Humphrey were on standby in Parry Sound and they were assigned to a call, which could be anywhere from, anywhere from Georgian Bay Township up to Britt or beyond, is that captured as a Humphrey station call, or is it captured as a Parry Sound station call if they're on standby in that station?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, I'm always asking similar questions to this to Terry and Matt, and it's my understanding, and I'm going to clarify again just to make sure that I am completely right on that if a car is doing a standby and they actually make it to the other station before they receive a call. So using your example, if Humphrey were to actually proceed and get to Parry Sound and then got a call, that would be counted as a Parry Sound call because they were then in the station.
Okay.
If, for instance, and we don't do this very much anymore, but if we were stationing a vehicle, if we pulled the point of barrel car out and moved it for balance coverage halfway between Parry Sound and Point of Barrel, and then they got a call, since they had not gotten all the way to Parry Sound yet, that would still be counted as a Point of Barrel call. So that sometimes would happen, I think, in the east side, in the Emsdale area, where a car may come out of Brooks Falls and move to Emsdale for balanced emergency coverage. And that would still be counted because they hadn't gotten to any other location. That would still be counted as a Brooks Falls call. I guess that's not a good example because they have nowhere to go in that case. But if a car moved from Powassan or Argyle towards South River, but they weren't all the way to South River to be in that station, it would still be from where they were last at station.
Awesome. Okay, because that does impact stats and response times depending on how it's treated. It actually it impacts call volumes for for certain stations. And it might look like because Humphrey does so many callbacks or so many standbys, let's say, not callbacks, my mistake. So it does so many standbys probably in the Parry Sound area, that could really elevate the number of calls from the Humphrey station if they were attributed to that station. So I was curious. Thanks for the clarification.
Anything else? Are you good? You're good, John?
I am. Thank you very much.
Okay, yep. Any other questions? No? Okay. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the reports? John and Shelley. That the EMS committee members receive reports 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 as listed above. All in favor then? And that's carried. Any other business? Nope. Okay, all right. Guess mover and seconder to adjourn then. Unless, Dave, have you got anything else you need to share?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, no, I do not. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay, all right. So mover and seconder to adjourn. Shelley and Joel, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you.